This conference will now be recorded.
Netravati, good morning. Good morning, all of you. Hello, good morning.
Good morning, ma'am.
Okay, are you able to hear my voice?
Good morning, ma'am.
My voice is clear?
Yes, ma'am. Clear.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Netravati,
Yes, ma'am.
are you ready?
Hmm?
Today's your presentation, no?
Given, ma'am.
You finished? Okay. Today, actually, Raksha has to give. I know Netravati. I just wanted to see your response. The shot? Okay. Raksha? Hello? Raksha is there?
No, ma'am, she is not joined it.
Okay. Shilpa? Hello, Shilpa.
Yes, ma'am.
Please ask Raksha as she is giving presentation today, or I'll start my class.
Okay, ma'am. 1 minute.
Yeah.
Ma'am, she did not receive the call, ma'am.
Okay, I'll start the class. If she joins, you just ask her and just update me. Okay.
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 Sure, ma'am.
So we started with anti-anginal drugs last class, and I started with the organic nitrates. So to recall, just to look back, and then we can continue. So basically, organic nitrates are the first line of treatment, especially when you want to go for the immediate treatment of this angina. And this mechanism of action, if you see, they are prodrugs. So the prodrugs are nothing but they will be converted inside the body by chemical reaction. That is, they'll be metabolized and then they'll become a active drug. So this prodrugs, they will give rise to the nitric oxide, and then this nitric oxide activates the soluble isoform of the guanylate cyclase. So the guanylate cyclase will convert the GTP molecule into cyclic GMP molecule. So this cyclic GMP molecule is a secondary messenger. So this promotes the dephosphorylation. So this is the difference between adenyl cyclase and the guanylyl cyclase. So there it is an opposite effect. So here it causes dephosphorylation of the myosin light chain, and thereby also it reduces the cytosolic. Cytosolic means the calcium which is present inside the cytoplasm. And since calcium is not there, and there is a dephosphorylation of the myosin light chain, this altogether leads to the relaxation of the smooth muscle. So this is the main mechanism of the organic nitrate. So this is, as I already explained to you, this nitric oxide, once it is converted, will be acting on GTP molecule, and this will enhance the conversion of GTP to cyclic GMP by activating the guanylyl cyclase. So this cyclic GMP, the secondary messenger, this causes the dephosphorylation of a calcium channel. So the calcium channel will be closed and calcium will not enter inside. So thereby the cytosolic or inside the cell, the calcium concentration will be reduced. On the other hand, it causes the dephosphorylation of the myosin light chain kinase. So because of that also, the myosin will not be involved for the contraction. So together there is a relaxation of the smooth. Then we move on to the pharmacokinetics of this organic nitrates. Basically, they are lipid soluble. So highly, they are non-polar in nature. And also, they are well absorbed from the buccal mucosa, intestine, and also from the skin. So because their absorption is very good from the buccal mucosa, usually for emergency purpose, all these tablets are available as a small tablet, as a sublingual tablet. So whoever has an attack or pain suddenly in the midnight or anything, so they can pop up one tablet and they can keep it under the tongue. So the absorption of this organic nitrates will be very high. So if you see this, when it is taken through the orally, all the organic nitrate except the isosorbate mononitrate, it undergoes extensive and the variable first pass metabolism in the liver. So the moment you take the tablet, once it is absorbed from the intestine and it reaches the blood circulation through the hepatic portal circulation, before it can reach the heart, it reaches the liver. So in the liver enzymes act on this organic nitrate, and hence there is a first pass metabolism. So a lot of the drug will be metabolized in the liver. Then they are rapidly denitrated by the glutathione reductase and the mitochondrial aldehyde dehydrogenase. So these two enzymes act on the organic nitrate, so thereby they are denitrated. So if you see or if you compare the pharmacokinetics of the nitroglycerin, isosorbide dinitrate, and also isosorbide mononitrate. So these are the three main organic nitrates used in the angina. So one is nitroglycerin, another is this isosorbide dinitrate, the third one is the isosorbide mononitrate. So if you see here in the nitroglycerin, if the nitroglycerin is taken through as a sublingual tablet or as a spray, so sublingual tablet only 2 minutes it will take for the absorption. So if it is sometimes you can also take it as a spray. So it takes 25 minutes to show its effect. The same nitroglycerin, if it is given through oral tablet, it takes 35 minutes to show the effect. Whereas if it is in the sustained release formulation, then the effect will be 4 to 8 hours. Then this nitroglycerin can also be used as a transdermal formulation. So in that transdermal dermatitis, it takes 30 minutes to show its effect, and the duration is 10 to 12 hours. So nitroglycerin patches, if they apply every 10 to 12 hours only, that much duration that the medicine will be showing its effect. Whereas if you see some isosorbide dinitrate, it takes 5 minutes to start its effect, and the total duration of the effect will be for 1 hour. The same thing if you take oral or the slow release medication, the 30 minutes it takes to show its effect, and almost 8 hours is the total duration. So same thing holds good for isosorbide mononitrate also. So it is a 30 minutes and it will be more than 12 to 24. So if you see all this, the isosorbide mononitrate has a longer duration of action as compared to other two drugs. So coming to the what are the adverse effects of this organic nitrates? Because it is causing vasodilation, the first and the most important adverse effect of organic nitrates or any other vasodilator is the headache. So headache is the most common adverse effect of all these nitrates, and if it is very high doses, it can even cause the postural hypertension. So suddenly when there is a lot of vasodilation is happening, the blood pressure goes down. The moment the person stands, so there will be low blood pressure, and there will be a facial flushing because of the vasodilation, and also there is tachycardia. So tachycardia is the reflex mechanism where whenever there is a reduction in the blood pressure, there is a reflex mechanism which in turn causes increase in the heart rate in order to increase the blood pressure. Then the phosphodiesterase type 5 inhibitors such as sildenafil potentiate the action of nitrate. So these phosphodiesterase 5 inhibitors are the other class of drugs which when it is given with the nitrates, what happens is it actually potentiates. So it will be having a synergistic type of activity. So both will cause lot of vasodilation. So to preclude the dangerous hypertension that may occur, this combination is contraindicated. So that means you are not supposed to combine the vasodilators, that is organic nitrates, along with the PDE inhibitors, that is phosphodiesterase 5 inhibitors. Now we will understand what is the tolerance for this organic nitrate. So what is tolerance? Any idea?
Resistance.
Yeah, resistance. Yeah, it is literally yes. Resistance or tolerance means basically initially with the 1 milligram, if the patient is responding to the drug, after a later stage, the person has to take a more drug in order to get at the same pharmacological effect. So the tolerance to the action of this nitrate develops rapidly as the blood vessels become desensitized to vasodilation. That means the blood vessels now they are not responding to the vasodilation. So there is a desensitization happens. So because of that, the drug will not be showing the same effect with the same dose. So you have to increase. So tolerance can overcome by providing a daily nitrate-free interval to restore sensitivity to the drug. So in order to get back the sensitivity of the blood vessels to the vasodilation, sometimes what physician does, they does a nitrate-free interval. Meaning is that sometimes they'll not give the nitrate. So because of that, the blood vessels will become a normal. Then they will give. So there will be always a free interval where the drug is not available to the body. So thereby the blood vessels will come back to the normal, and again they will be sensitive enough for the vasodilation effect of the organic nitrate. So dependence also develop for the organic nitrates. So dependence usually develop for the psychotropic drugs, like it may be narcotic analgesic, or it may be amphetamine, cocaine, so many things. But sometimes other than the psychiatric or psychotropic agents, even other agents can also cause the dependence. So organic nitrates have that tendency. So what happens is, whenever you withdraw, sudden withdrawal after a prolonged exposure. So the person already has taken for the 6 months this organic nitrate. Suddenly the patient stop taking this medicine. So this results in a spasm of a coronary and a peripheral blood vessels. So hence this requires again you have to give the organic nitrate. So hence always whenever the person has to withdraw from the organic nitrate, it should be gradual. So from 1 milligram you come to 0.5 milligram, 0.25 milligram. Let's slowly, step by step, we have to withdraw from the organic nitrate in order to protect from the dependence. So here the dependence is not of a psychiatric. If the dependence is the spasm of the coronary and the peripheral blood vessels. So now we'll understand what are the uses of this organic nitrates. As we already seen, these are the drug of choice, especially in the angina pectoris. So this GTN produces relief within 3 minutes in 75% patient. 1 second. So GTN is nothing but glyceryl trinitrate. So this produces the effect within 3 minutes. The moment the person takes, within 3 minutes, the effect will be seen almost in the 75% of the people. But the rest of the people, that is in the 25% other people, it takes little longer time, maybe maximum 9 minutes. So within 9 minutes, this glyceryl trinitrate produces its effect, especially in the angina pectoris. Then these organic nitrates are also useful in the acute coronary syndromes. So they are very much useful in decreasing the preload. Preload means the venous return to the heart will be reduced, and also they increases the coronary flow. So the blood flow to the cardiac muscles will be increased because of the vasodilation, and also there is a venodilation, thereby the venous blood which comes back to the heart also reduces. So once it is reduces, it is decreasing the preload. And also organic nitrates are also useful in the myocardial infarction. So the glyceryl trinitrate is usually used during in order to evolving means the initial stages of myocardial infarction. Basically, in the initial stages of myocardial infarction, this drug is used to reduce the chest pain or a heavy pain, and also to reduce the pulmonary congestion. Another very important is to reduce the necrosis. So necrosis is since what happens in the myocardial infarction, since there is less blood supply to a particular part of the cardiac muscle, so the cardiac muscle will start dying. The necrosis happens. So, but in the initial stages of a myocardial infarction, if the organic nitrates are given, so what this does, they unfavorably alters the oxygen balance in the marginal partially ischemic zone. So meaning is that they'll try to reduce the the cell death or the necrosis which is happening in the cardiac muscle, and enhances the oxygen supply to the cardiac muscle. So hence it will be very much really useful in the initial stages of the myocardial infarction. Then it is also having a lot of use in the congestive heart failure and also in the acute left ventricular failure. So this organic nitrates, they reduces the venous pooling of the blood. Hence, it reduces the venous return. That is, the deoxygenated blood which comes back to the heart is reduced. So once it reduces, automatically there is a reduction in the preload. So once the preload is reduces, it also reduces the end diastolic volume in the ventricles, and also because of all this, there is an improvement in the left ventricular function. So since there is an improvement in the left ventricular function, these organic nitrates are very much useful in the left ventricular failure. And also this organic nitrates, apart from the heart disease, it also has some effect or the uses in the biliary colic, in the esophageal spasm. Also, this is also useful in the cyanide poisoning, where it generates methemoglobin, so which has a high affinity for the cyanide radicals, and thereby it forms the cyanomethemoglobin. So thereby it reduces the poisoning of the cyanide inside the body. Then we'll move on to the second class of drugs which are used in the angina. They are beta blockers. So beta blockers, they usually decreases the oxygen demand to the myocardium because they block the beta-1 receptor which are present in the cardiac muscle. So once they block the beta-1 receptor present in the cardiac muscle, the force of contraction of the heart reduces, then the cardiac output reduces, so thereby the workload on the heart also reduces, and together the contractility reduces, so thereby the blood pressure also reduces. So all these beta blockers, if you see different categories of beta blockers, they all are very much effective in reducing the frequency, so the number of time the attack happens, and also the severity of the attack. So one is the number of time the pain comes and how much pain, what is the severity. So all this will be reduced because of the beta blockers, and it increases the exercise tolerance in the classical angina. So meaning is that they can exercise, and slowly the tolerance will slowly develop. But if you see beta blockers, you should prefer the cardio-selective agent. That means the selective beta blockers which act only on the beta-1 receptor, like atenolol and the metoprolol, and you should not prefer the non-selective beta blockers. So non-selective beta blockers means which act both on the beta-1 and the beta-2 receptor, because if you block a beta-2 receptor, then it can have some effect in the asthma patients. Especially propranolol should not be used in the angina pectoris. And also agents such as pindolol, which has an intrinsic sympathomimetic activity, should be avoided in patients with angina. So meaning, what is the intrinsic sympathomimetic activity? Intrinsic sympathomimetic activity is nothing but it can activate the beta-1 receptors. So if it activates beta-1 receptor, obviously the heart will start working more, the force of contraction increases, the heart rate increases. So hence pindolol is contraindicated in angina, and also it should not be used in the myocardial infarction. So now we'll move on to the other class of drugs. This we already discussed in the antihypertensive agents, but again, if you understand much higher, it is easy for you to remember everything. So we already understood there are different types of the calcium channel blockers. So here it is basically, this chart shows that the calcium channels are of a 3 types. One is called as a L-type calcium channel, another is called as the T-type calcium channel, and the third one is called as the N-type calcium channels. So the L-type stands for long-lasting current. Meaning is that if this type of a calcium channel opens, it will be open for a longer duration of a time. So that's why it is called as long-lasting current. Whereas we have a T-type calcium channels, it is transient current. Means only for a shorter period these channels will be open. Then we have an N-type. So N-type indicates it is very, very specific to the neuronal or the central nervous system. So here if you see in the first column, this gives the properties of this calcium channel. So what is the conductance, what is the activation threshold. So you don't have to worry about all this. This is only to understand. So don't worry, you have to remember all this. Just you have to remember there are 3 different types of the calcium channel. So one is L-type, another is a T-type, third one is a N-type. So whatever the calcium channel blockers which is used to treat angina or hypertension will be concentrating on the L-type calcium channels. So if you remember this much, that is sufficient. So this chart is not that much useful. So this classification we already studied in antihypertensive. So basically the calcium channel blockers are chemically, depending on the structure, they are basically classified into 3 main categories. One is called as a phenyl alkyl amine. So it has a phenyl and also alkyl amine group. So example is verapamil. Then we have a second class of calcium channel blockers like a benzodiazepines. In that only one drug is there, that is diltiazem. Then the third category of CCBs or calcium channel blockers or dihydropyridine. In this there are so many drugs. We have a first generation, the second generation. So they are nifedipine, felodipine, amlodipine, nitrindipine, nimodipine, lacidipine, lercadipine, and benidipine. So these are the drugs which comes under dihydropyridines. Now we will move on to what are the pharmacological actions of this calcium channel blockers. So as the name indicates, it blocks the calcium channel. So if the calcium channels are blocked, calcium cannot enter inside the cardiac cells. Then there is no increase in the cytoplasmic calcium. So hence if the calciums are not there, then a myosin chain will not be activated. Then there is no contraction. So coming to the smooth muscle, these calcium channel blockers causes the relaxation by decreasing the intracellular availability of the calcium. So basically if you see dihydropyridines, they have the most marked smooth muscle relaxant effect and the vasodilator action. So the nifedipine, felodipine, all those things. So they have a more smooth muscle relaxant activity. Because of that, they have a more vasodilator activity. And if you see comparatively, if you see verapamil is somewhat weaker, followed by diltiazem. So it's like the first, the nifedipine, all those things will come. Next, the verapamil category will come. Then finally, the diltiazem will come. Then the calcium channel blocker, what are the effect on the heart? So the calcium influx is increased in ischemia because of the membrane depolarization, that hypoxia produces. So during ischemia, whenever there is less blood supply to the cardiac muscles, there is an increase in the calcium influx. So a lot of calcium will start entering inside. So because there is a lot of calcium enters inside, what happens? The membrane undergoes depolarization. So because of that, the heart will start, contracting more and more. So these calcium channel blockers, they protect the tissue by inhibiting the entrance of the calcium into the cardiac and also in the smooth muscles of the coronary and the systemic arterial blood. So it also means the coronary arteries And also the systemic arterial blood. That means it starts from the aorta and the other main arteries. Wherever the arterial bed is there, wherever there is oxygen blood is moving, so all these blood vessels, there is a smooth muscle relaxation happens. So and also these calcium channel blockers, they reduces the muscle tone and vascular resistance. So because of that, they reduces the afterload on the heart. So name the second category, verapamil is another drug. So basically, verapamil, it dilates arterioles and decreases the total peripheral resistance. So it acts on the arterioles, so thereby it dilates the arterioles. So once the arterioles dilates, the resistance of blood flow also decreases. Hence, the total peripheral resistance decreases. So not only it acts on the blood vessel, it also slows down the atrioventricular conduction directly. Means whatever the signal which is generated at the sinoatrial node, which has to travel to the atrioventricular node. So from the SAN to the AVN, so then from AVN to the bundle of hairs and the Purkinje fiber, whatever the conduction is there, that will be slowed down. And because of all this, it also decreases the heart rate, the contractility. So the force of contraction of the cardiac muscle reduces. So thereby the blood pressure reduces. So now the heart is working not that much fast. So because of that, the oxygen demand of the cardiac muscle also decreases. And also it has some alpha adrenergic blocking activity. So because of this alpha adrenergic blocking activity, there is additional vasodilation will be happening. And it has a greater negative inotropic effect than the amlodipine, but it is a weaker vasodilator. Meaning is that inotropic effect is reducing the heart rate. So the verapamil reduces the heart rate by its negative inotropic effect, but it has a less vasodilator effect as compared to the amlodipine. So the most important point to be noted here is the verapamil should not be given with the beta blockers or digoxin or the cardiac depressant like quinidine and disopyramide. Why so? Because verapamil as such has a negative inotropic effect. It is reducing the heart rate. So if you give other negative inotropic drugs like a beta blockers, digoxin, and the drugs which reduces the cardiac activity like quinidine and disopyramide, then there will be additional negative inotropic effect on the heart. So now heart will stop pumping the blood. Hence, it should not be combined. So this is basically a drug-drug interaction. So now the second class of drug in this calcium channel blocker is benzodiazepine, which is diltiazem. So this diltiazem also slows the AV conductions, that is atrioventricular conduction will be reduced. Then it decreases the rate of firing of the sinus node pacemaker. Meaning is that initial part only we discuss the sinoatrial node, or SAN is the one which generates the impulses. So usually if you see the sinoatrial, the number of impulses generated, it will be almost 120 impulses per minute. But this diltiazem reduces that rate, so the pacemaker will not be generating so many impulses. And it is also a coronary artery vasodilator. So it acts on the coronary arteries and thereby it causes the vasodilation. So once there is a vasodilation in the coronary arteries, then the blood flow to the heart muscles also enhances. Then the diltiazem can also relieve coronary artery spasm and is particularly useful in patients with the variant angina. So when we study the pathophysiology or the initial part of the angina, we saw that there is a variant angina where there is spasm happens. So because there is a spasm happens, this diltiazem, which reduces the coronary artery spasm, so this can be having a very much useful in the variant angina. Okay. If you compare with the verapamil and the nifedipine, the vasodilator effect, the potency is less as compared to the verapamil and the nifedipine, but it has, in between negative inotropic action, that it reduces the heart rate, but it has a very direct effect on the sinoatrial node, where it reduces the impulse generation, and also it reduces the conduction of these impulses in the atrioventricular node. Then moving on to the third category of a calcium channel blocker, that is dihydropyridine calcium channel blocker. So in this, nifedipine is like a prototype of the dihydropyridine. So whatever you will study for this dihydropyridine or the nifedipine, it is almost holds good for a other dihydropyridine calcium channel blocker like amlodipine or C. So nifedipine is a prototype of this dihydropyridine calcium channel blocker, and it has a very rapid onset and the short duration of action. So rapid onset means it takes a very less time to show its effect, and the duration of action is also very less. And this nifedipine, it causes arterial dilatation, so thereby it reduces the total peripheral resistance. And this nifedipine, because it has very short half-life, it usually administered as an extended release oral formulation. So in order to get the effect for a longer period, so this nifedipine is formulated as an extended release formulation, and thereby its total duration of action can be increased. So it causes a direct depressant action on the heart in a higher. So if the nifedipine has taken in a higher doses, so this totally depresses the heart muscle. So you should be very, very careful whenever the patient is taking the higher doses. Then what are the adverse drug reactions? Basically, these calcium channel blockers are really safe because they have a very short duration of action. But sometimes some patient, they do show the side effects, which are palpitation, there will be a flushing, and ankle edema, hypertension can happen, headache, drowsiness, and also nausea. And this nifedipine has paradoxically increased the frequency of angina in some patients. So meaning is that it is actually used to treat angina, but because of its direct depressant action on the heart, sometimes nifedipine also increases the angina. So next, after the nifedipine, we have some other class of drugs like amlodipine. So amlodipine is an oral dihydropyridine calcium channel blocker, and this also acts as a arterial vasodilator. Then we have nitrandipine. This has calcium channel blocker and also is having a vasodilator action. And this vasodilation is basically because of its release of the nitric oxide from the endothelium of the blood vessels, and thereby it inhibits cyclic AMP phosphodiesterase. So it is basically act one way as a calcium channel blocker, and another way it is acting as a organic nitrate by releasing the nitric oxide. Then we have lacidipine. This lacidipine is a recent category of a calcium channel blocker. Bharati, you want to speak anything? Hello. So the nitrandipine, not only it acts as a calcium channel blocker, it also means releases the nitric oxide by the endothelium of the blood vessel. So this nitric oxide, which is released from this endothelium, it inhibits cyclic AMP phosphodiesterase enzyme. Then lasodipine, as I told you, it is a recently added calcium channel blocker, and it is very, very vasoselective dihydropyridine. Then we have a nimodipine. So this nimodipine is a very short-acting dihydropyridine. The important point for this nimodipine is it can cross the blood-brain barrier very efficiently because it is a highly nonpolar compound. So hence it can show some of its effect even on the blood vessels which are present inside the CNS. And this lercanidipine and benidipine, these are the two dihydropyridine drugs which are having a long duration of action. So whenever the patient requires a long duration of action, so the physician will go for the lercanidipine and also the benidipine, since they have a very long duration of the action. This is basically to summarize the pharmacokinetic of all these drugs. Here, if you see, we have 5 drugs: the verapamil, diltiazem, and nifedipine, felodipine, and amlodipine. So if you see the bioavailability of this drug, so bioavailability is nothing but how much of the active drug is reached the blood circulation. For example, if you have taken a 500 milligram of crocin tablet as a tablet, after half an hour, how much paracetamol is there in your blood, that tells you the bioavailability. For example, if a 400 milligram of the paracetamol is there inside the blood, that shows almost 80% bioavailability. That means for 500 milligram, 400 milligram of the paracetamol is absorbed. So what about 100? So that is 80%. But if you see here, the bioavailability of all these drugs, the verapamil is having only 15 to 30%, diltiazem has 40 to 60%, nifedipine has 30 to 60%, felodipine has 15 to 25, and amlodipine is little higher bioavailability is 60 to 65%. Then coming to the next, this is VD stands for volume of distribution, means how much these calcium channel blockers can accumulate in the tissues. So if you see all this, the felodipine has little higher volume of distribution, and amlodipine has a highest volume of distribution. So meaning is that there is a tissue accumulation of these drugs. Then CL stands for clearance. This means how much time the drug takes to clear from the body. If you see this felodipine will take almost 1 hour clearance rate. The least one will be these two, nifedipine and the amlodipine. So each one has a different clearance rate. Then the active metabolites, yes, the verapamil will be converted into active metabolite, which will also have a calcium channel blocking effect. Diltiazem also will be converted into active metabolite, which also shows the CCB effect. Whereas these three, they don't have that much. Whatever the metabolite comes, they're not active, they'll be eliminated. And if you see elimination T-half, so how much time it takes for the half of the drug will be eliminated from the blood. So it is, if you see here, amlodipine is actually 35 to 45. So this is because it has a high volume of distribution. Since it is accumulated in the tissue, it takes more time for it to be eliminated out of the body. Whereas if you see nifedipine, it will have 2 to 5 hours. So felodipine also has high volume of distribution. Hence, the elimination T-half is 12 to 80 hours. Then we'll understand what are the uses of calcium channel blockers. So these calcium channel blockers can be easily, safely given to the patient which have obstructive lung disease and also the peripheral vascular disease, in which beta blockers are contraindicated. someone who is suffering from asthma, someone who is having some peripheral vascular disease, during that condition, calcium channel blocker is the drug of choice. So these CCBs can be used for the angina pectoris. It is also useful for the hypertension, cardiac arrhythmias, and also these CCBs are useful in the hypertrophic cardiomyopathies. So with this, I will finish today's class. So next class we'll continue. Is Raksha joined the class? No?
No, ma'am. She said she was having network issues, so she'll do it in next class.
Okay, fine. So with this, I finished the calcium channel blockers in the anti-anginal drug. So next class we'll continue with the other part. And Shilpa and Mahatesh, please tell Raksha to take her seminar test. Not test, I think this new timetable, I think it's on Friday, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So please inform her. Okay. Then have a good day.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am.